Seaports can be major hubs of economic activity, bringing jobs to surrounding communities and economic lift to major cities. San Diego's two working marine terminals bustle with trucks, commercial vehicles, marine vessels, and off-road equipment moving cargo. But how does a working port balance commerce while mitigating the impact of associated pollution and emissions? "5 years ago, one small nonprofit went looking for the answer. In 2015, the San Diego Port Tenants Association, or SDPTA, applied for a grant from the California Energy Commission's Clean Transportation Program. The association's goal was ambitious, to be sure: fund a multi-year project demonstrating 10 zero-emission vehicles and an innovative freight signal priority system that could decrease harmful emissions in surrounding communities.
This particular grant, it was actually set up for ports. We got a phone call from Momentum, and they brought to our attention the same grant. We sent that on to Sacramento, and lo and behold, we hear a month or two later that we were the #1 winner of that grant. And we actually beat out the Port of Long Beach and LA.
And in 2016, the California Energy Commission awarded San Diego Port Tenants Association a $5.9 million grant to fuel major environmental advances by the association and its members. Working closely with Momentum and 4 local demonstration partners, SDPTA embarked on a project to build the capacity for advanced technology to operate, support, and improve the environmental and economic health of an urban port community. Air pollution is a significant concern at port facilities, with community air quality impact by emissions from diesel and gas-powered medium and heavy vehicles. Most demonstrations like this in California have been conducted by large commercial ports. This project was distinct because not only was it solely led by a small local tenant association, but San Diego is an urban port integrated into the local community, culture, and economy. Not just a business enterprise, but a waterfront playground for both locals and tourists.
Our port is so diverse. We have residents, we have commercial, we have hotels, and we have marinas, and we have 2 cargo terminals. So we have a very diverse port. We have surrounding those areas, we have communities like the Barrio Logan, National City, and Chula Vista that have what we call our working waterfront, really close to those residents. What is really important through this grant is to look at those communities and the impacts of our working waterfront that actually create thousands and thousands of jobs. How do we be better community partners?
This freight signal priority system, it gets the trucks green lights. And by giving those trucks green lights at the traffic signals, we're able to move those trucks through the traffic signals without braking, without slowing down, and that creates a cleaner atmosphere for the communities in National City and San Diego, Barrio Logan. It actually makes the roadway safer for those trucks too. There's fewer stops.
Along with ITS, partners received all-electric forklifts and heavy-duty trucks that have 0 tailpipe emissions.
We were contacted by the San Diego Port Tenant Association of our interest in participating. Of course, we said, absolutely, sign us up. We currently use 15 diesel-powered yard tractor vehicles. So we actually got 2 electric utility vehicles that we're now using when we do our operations. So it's a very expensive process, but it's not only the cost of the truck, you have the charging infrastructure. That's part of it that's usually not included. And that's probably the largest hurdle of changing from diesel into electric.
Marine Group as a boatyard, of course, we've always had that desire to want to be a good business for the community. And one of the goals that we had was to become a zero-emission boatyard. We didn't realize that we could do that with our actual heavy-duty equipment. So the grant, it forced us to actually think outside what's already available on the commercial market. And we picked 2 forklifts. We ordered them to be electric, and here we are today. Just that small seeded idea then grew into what else can we electrify, and so now we've electrified 2 of our man lifts. It's actually hybrid technology, and with 15 of our forklifts now, over half of them are electric. So grants like this are important because it really does challenge a business to think outside of its normal operations.
For Pacia, our goals were we want to create a greener fleet. There's some barriers, and there's really a barrier of how do we get there. We need a vehicle that's going to have the range to be able to do the deliveries maybe within the region, the county, and then really it's all of Southern California. The drivers love them. So that was actually a wonderful barrier to get over, because you really want your drivers to be comfortable. You know, they're going to sit in there for hours, and I think the drivers have compared the electric vehicles compared to the diesel more like a luxury vehicle. Whenever they're going through neighborhoods, they don't want to make a lot of noise. So with the electric vehicle, it's just, you know, it's silent.
The biggest challenge is that this needs to make business sense. If I had to start this business and just use electric trucks, it wouldn't make any sense at all. I have to slowly integrate these trucks and reach stackers and forklifts into my program and make them work. And I make them work because of our efforts to clean up our climate. Our goal is in the next 5 years to have 100% of our fleet at 10th Avenue electric, including our reach stackers. I believe that going green is only going to improve the air quality and the quality of the work environment at the port and surrounding local community. I think that we are just going in the right direction with this.
What this project does as a whole is holistic, because not only are we addressing climate, we're also addressing the health, and then there's the economics of it. This project is specifically targeting disadvantaged communities and also ensuring that the local workforce is involved in this project. It brings everybody together as a whole and also really increases our economics in towards San Diego in general.
Doing this grant has been a lot of work, but I'm really pleased that I've done that. I feel very, very proud to have administered this. To have something like this is a huge impact, and I think that we will see other grants come to San Diego as well as to other parts that are smaller ports. And we, you know, the sea rises all together, and I think that when we can do stuff like that, it's all the better.
Environmental management is important for all ports. The San Diego Port Tenant Association tenant-led demonstration projects will have a far-reaching impact. By taking the lead, San Diego charted a course on how to adopt zero-emission freight vehicles and transportation solutions into their marine operations. Yes, this is one of many demonstration projects in California, but for San Diego, it's something more. It's something personal. A collaboration intended to create a healthier community on port tidelands for all people who call San Diego home.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Matt Art here with Momentum. Will be the MC tonight. This project overall was as mentioned in the video, an Energy Commission funded project. It was one of the first of its kind out there. I think the grant was developed and submitted back in 2015 and awarded into 2016. And it was one of the first grants to demonstrate zero emission heavy duty technologies in the port space. And back in the 2015, 2016 days was the very beginning of zero emissions and in getting these larger vehicles to have batteries that could actually do a duty cycle that could be used in a port setting. And want to very much congratulate SCPTA, San Diego Port Tenant Association, who is the applicant, and the Port of San Diego, a supporter of the project, for putting this together, for kind of being brave, going out there, getting the funding, and then enduring the challenges of actually of working through and demonstrating first of its kind technologies. I do think we have some folks from the Energy Commission on this webinar. So again, want to thank the Energy Commission for their support of this project through the years, their funding, their patience. Not everything has always gone smoothly. But in the process, I think the team here, the terminal operators, the port, has learned a lot about zero emission technologies. What are the benefits? What to look for in these future generations of vehicles? Their original technologies were often the first generation of some vehicle, and now we're on V3, V4, V5 from these different technology vendors. And I think the different operators have all learned a lot about the challenges, know how to address this better as they continue to evaluate their fleet deployment and bringing on these new technologies. And as a holistic organization here with the port, we learned a lot in the process about what is the workforce going to need to be? What are the supply chains? How do we support a zero emission port and a zero emission economy? What are the jobs that we're going to have? What's the equipment, and what are the vehicles that are going to have to be maintained, and what are those skills to maintain it? This was a process of developing technology, often in close conjunction with the technology developers themselves, and working closely with them to understand how do we build a vehicle that actually serves what we need to do after it's been in operation for a little while. How do we address the challenges that come up with operations in the port settings and the specific duty cycles? And how do we make a better product going on? One of our project partners here, I'm gonna turn this over in a second to Liz Perez. She's with GC Green and is one of the founders there. And Liz was working with us to help evaluate and understand how can we take the learnings from these technology demonstrations, how can we apply them to the port, how do we ensure that as this technology grows and increases in prevalence at the port, are we supporting inclusion of the local communities, the workforce, how are we building a new economy in the region? So Liz, I'll turn it over to you to talk a bit about your findings, what you found, what you've learned.
Thank you, Matt. And, as Matt mentioned, my name is Elizabeth Perez. And before I dive into things, I just want to thank everyone for taking your Thursday evening to be with us, and special acknowledgments to any elected officials that have attended, commissioners, and also government appointees, H2O Radio, SDG&E, especially the CEC and CPUC for being a part of this, and community colleges and universities that have taken their time out of their evening to listen to what jobs are out there for the future. And then of course, our Barrio Logan and San Diego Seaport neighbors that have signed up to hear this exciting, for me, and I know a lot of us here in San Diego, it is exciting because we are one of those firsts. And again, thank you. And I'm the president of GC Green, founder and president of GC Green. I formed a company in 2010 as a way to incorporate my background as a woman of color and my military experience and my personal growing interest in climate security and clean energy solutions. Since inception, our company has been focused on the energy, sustainability, and inclusion. Our mission is to become part of the solution and solve important societal challenges. This particular project was meaningful to us because it had goals to address issues such as environmental justice, economic justice, And this was done through the introduction of new seaport clean energy technologies. It is important to keep in mind that this project began in 2016. And with that, it included many firsts. For example, in 2021, we may think of the idea of electrification of medium and heavy duty trucks, equipment, such as forklifts as, well, not as remarkable, right? However, in 2016, it was absolutely a novel and new idea. Similarly, in this era of widespread attention to environmental and social justice, we react to the terms such as equity, inclusion, and diversity as now a part of our everyday language. But the vision to include equity and inclusion as part of a project in 2016 truly represents amazing foresight and leadership on behalf of this project. One of the things that the CEC and the project team decided to do on this particular project was to include an equity report, and that was achieved as part of this project. In the next few slides, I will share with you the recommendations of that report that was prepared by our colleagues at the Green Lining Institute. Recommendations are hard-hitting because they report that the equity vision was not fully realized on this project. But as we go through this PowerPoint and the recommendations, keep in mind again that when this discussion of equity was first introduced, we were at the beginning stages of even fully defining a term such as equity and inclusion of disadvantaged communities. And again, I'll go ahead and dive into the PowerPoint, and part of the goals and visions, and I don't need to read the screen, a lot of it is just really kept, and I just want to emphasize that this introduction and this presentation and tonight as a whole is a high level discussion of how leaders, not just here in San Diego, not just here in California, but nationally, how we can build programs, how we can take a look creatively to provide direct funding to go beyond just greening of the seaports and how it directly impacts our communities, such as community colleges, universities, and designing and developing curriculum for our next workforce. And then also the policy drafters to enable all of the above to happen. So back to our goals. We need to ensure that, and part of the findings was the definite need to ensure that equity and inclusion is absolutely a part of the discussion at the beginning of the project. And that means even responding to a lot of the grants and that are out there from the absolute beginning. And a part of the process, and you're talking about process, and ensuring that building equity and that planning design, what does that mean? It means from the ground up and taking a look at what does that design look from high schools and trades that can be developed from emerging new technologies that are becoming out of the seaports as we green our seaports, not just here locally again, but nationally. In regards to implementation, the implementation, again, and I can't emphasize more, is our workforce development leaders, our community colleges, our universities, working collaboratively with also our seaports, also the technology leaders, implementing a lot of the technologies that are going to be out there for our new generation of greener seaports, and working all together, not just universities, but also local leaders and government officials, state, and also on the federal side, taking a look at this at a closer lens and what we can do to really hone in on not just, yes, greening our ports, not just healthier air, but also taking a look at the economics of it and really diving into a solid plan that could go beyond just 5, 10, 20 years. And I cannot emphasize this more. Without measurable analysis, if there are not measurable goals, then there isn't that roadmap. And this happens a lot, and this I can say honestly through my time in government, not just in the Navy, but also in my state government time frame, that does tend to happen. So if there aren't measurable lined out goals and outcomes that we need to have, then we just are kind of going, I would just say, without that solid roadmap, what these measurable marks are needed. And then from that, developing an analysis and different protocol and checks in place to make sure that we are meeting those goals. And also definitely including the community. Again, I can't emphasize more, is including the local community before even applying for these grants, meaning ensuring a certain percentage of community workforce, local community workforce is involved when greening our seaports, ensuring that local percentage of local small businesses are also a part of this. And especially here in San Diego, and probably this may be the case other places outside of San Diego, our veterans, our veteran small businesses, our veteran workforce, ensuring that our veterans are also included, not just our workforce portion, but also our small businesses. And as we move more directly into tonight's specific equity topic, workforce and supply chain inclusion, our discussion is just really a follow-up of Greenlining's recommendations and their findings. Because this workshop represents some early steps in a longer term relationship that we're going to have, right? Because collectively, we need to engage. And as we engage and scale up equity and inclusion as part of our adoption of these innovative technologies for the electrification of our ports. And as we work towards building that roadmap together, our next panelists will speak on specific things we need to continue to address, such as defining the terms of workforce equity and supply chain inclusion, establishing milestones, identifying and achieving funding, and setting accountability expectations for diversity and inclusion on projects. So to help them get started, I want to start off here on one of the definitions. So diversity equates to being invited to a party, while inclusion means actively participating. For workforce and supply chain equity goals, and inviting means that we are trying to include people of color, veterans, and others to become more a part of the process. Inclusion means that we have really just start developing more resources and training, access to certification, and in the case of veterans, mapping out where translatable military skills may apply. We are all on this historic journey together. And I'm very proud to be a part of this project. I'm proud to be a part of this team, and I look forward to being a catalyst as we all move together to scale up and gear up towards building the energy economy together and building the economy, the economic future together as a whole for our communities. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Matt, and he'll go ahead and introduce our next panelist.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate all the work that you've done on this project so far. Couldn't have got to this last leg here without you. So for everybody who's on here, our next kind of round will be a panelist discussion where we'll talk with a number of the participants of within this project, just about their experience, their lessons learned, where have we gone from what we were thinking in 2016 to what we know now? What are the things that are coming next, and what has this project meant to us? And what can it mean to our greater community as we move forward? And in this, we'll have panelists. I think we're going to have 7 panelists here. So we'll have Dana Fries, who's the Workforce Development Training Manager at Long Beach City College. We'll have Dinah Willier, who's a Senior Customer Solutions Advisor in the Clean Transportation Group at San Diego Gas and Electric. We'll have Jason Stack, who's the founder and CEO of STC Traffic, which is one of the technology demonstration partners on this grant. We'll have Jerry Krug here, is the General Manager for Operations at TransPower, who was also a technology demonstrator here. We have Jorg Verschau, who is now an independent consultant, but was formerly the founder of Efficient Drivetrains, Inc., which is a technology vendor of zero-emission heavy-duty trucks that is now Cummins, part of the Cummins team. We've got Phil Gibbons, who is an energy and sustainability. I didn't write it down whether it's a director or manager. So Phil, you can make up whatever title you want at this point at the Port of San Diego. And we've got Sophie Silvestri, who at the beginning of this was a part of the SDPTA team, the applicant, and is now the Manager of Business Development and Government Affairs at Pasha Automotive Services. Great. And we've got everyone here. Well done, whoever is managing the Zoom. I'm impressed. So want to start off with a few questions here. And again, for the audience, if you do have questions for any of the panelists here, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll try to keep an eye out for those and redirect the questions out to the group. So want to start here. Sophie, we'll start with you first. I just want to hear a little bit about your experience with the project. Feel free to talk a little bit about your experience while at SDPTA, what it meant to the Port Tenants Association, and also more recently, kind of how has this gone for Pasha? What's been the experience going through your first zero emission vehicle demonstration?
Great, thanks Matt. Thanks everybody for having me again. Sophie Silvestri with Pasha. Nice to be with all of you this evening. Yeah, this grant kind of Sharon and I kind of call it our baby in a way, because this started with really just you never know who you're going to get a phone call from. So it was just a afternoon on a Tuesday, and I got a call from Sean from Momentum. I think it was called the Grant Farm at the time, and he said, "Hi, I'm Sean from the Grant Farm. And we've never talked before, but I have a really great idea. Are you willing to, listen to this great idea?" Okay, let's hear it. And so Sharon and I talked, and we said, you know what? There's so much changing, especially in the state of California. A lot of the tenants are facing some new regulations, and we're always trying to find ways to help make more sustainable operations across the board. And not only that, of course, the Port of San Diego has their climate plan, and that they know they can't move the needle without the help of the tenants. And so we thought this is a really good opportunity. I think we should go for it. So of course we get the blessing from our board, and we went for it, and we had really no idea what we were doing, quite frankly. We had never applied for a grant, especially of this caliber before. And then when we find out that we not only were able to get this funding, but that we were number one ahead of all these other ports that typically, get all the funding, we were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so the journey started, in 2016. And what I can say is that, demonstration projects, after seeing this through from the administrator side when I worked for Sharon Cloward, and then I went to work for Pasha in late 2016, early 2017, demonstration projects are so important because there's so much we've learned from this grant, and it will make it so that not only can future grants be more successful, but now these vital businesses within the Port District, these tenants, have a far better understanding of electric equipment and what its capabilities are, what the challenges are, and how to get through it. When you demonstrate something, you're basically signing up to have the bandwidth to be able to figure things out. And there were a lot of challenges, but that's okay, because that's that's why we're doing this. We've got to start somewhere. We've got to figure out how can we eventually have a 100% green fleet. You know, a lot of these pieces of equipment just 5 years ago were barely, like they weren't commercially available or barely commercially available. And now you're seeing more and more of that. So being in constant communication with Momentum and the grant team, and then also with the OEMs, in our case, BYD, telling them, okay, this should be tweaked. Okay, this would be better for our particular industry, because not every industry is the same. So when you're looking at new equipment, compatibility is really, really key. And so that's a big lesson for us, is what kind of equipment do we need to make our operation successful so that we can reduce our footprint, but also keep the business running. So compatibility is really, really key. And that's something that we've constantly been in communication with BYD. I'll just give you an example of how far the advancement has come just in the years that we've been doing this grant. We started off with one generation 1 drayage truck, and Pasha Automotive Services, from time to time, we're the terminal operator of National City Marine Terminal, for those of you who don't know. So when there is not enough room for vehicles on the terminal, if there's a surge in volume or if there's a port hold or something, we need additional space. And as many of you know, San Diego doesn't have a lot of open paved land just sitting there. And so we have some additional space out at Otay Mesa. So we thought, great, it's 21 miles away. This is a perfect opportunity for an electric drayage truck, because it's close by, and it's not a huge long haul where they're going to have to worry about range of the battery. That generation 1 could do one trip from the terminal to our offsite satellite lots in Otay Mesa and back with just having one charge. And so that, fast forward to when we were able to adopt a generation 2 of this same model, we got four trips. So that just shows you how fast this technology is moving, and it's encouraging, because we 5 years ago went from this truck that could barely make one trip to one that can make 4. And so that makes our operations more efficient. It's helpful for the drivers to know that they are not, you know, they can keep their efficiency up, and they're not waiting to charge during their shift. They can use one charge the whole shift. And that's just one good example of how far this has come. So I'll leave it at that for now, and let the other panelists talk, and let me know if you have any questions on that.
Thank you, Sophie. Phil, I wanted to give you a chance, just from the port, to talk about kind of what the project's meant for the port and how it's impacted what the future for the port is going to look like.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I'm Phil Gibbons. I'm with the Port of San Diego. I'm just a manager at the Port of San Diego on the Ports and Energy team. I'm looking at my screen, and I think our logo is backwards. So I guess I need to turn around my picture, but
it's good for us. I went through this process too. You're actually all good.
Okay, good. You know, I often tell folks that I hope when the history books are written about heavy duty electric trucks, there's got to be a chapter in that book about San Diego, because that's how important this project has been to electrification of heavy duty trucks here at our port, along our working waterfront in San Diego, and really to the state. And, you know, I'm not trying to be too idealistic, but perhaps, you know, the rest of the country and the world, because a lot of great stuff has happened right here. You know, from our perspective, this period between 2015 to, I guess, today was this period of experimentation. You know, we could see on the horizon that the regulatory environment was going to move in the direction of zero emission vehicles. We saw the technology beginning to advance. And, you know, and even today, you see a lot of companies and corporations, especially big corporations, advancing sustainability. We foresaw all that 5 years ago. And so having the ability to bring this technology into the hands of the folks who are going to use it is priceless. You know, We can talk about it all day long. I can run my little Excel models and show you total cost of ownership analyses and why an electric vehicle is going to be cheaper in the long run. But that means nothing to anybody until somebody gets their hands on the vehicle and can actually drive it. And that's exactly what Sophie explained that Paisha was able to do. And the rest of our tenants have been able to do is to actually, move the vehicle, learn about charging, see how it functions, to build that customer confidence, because this is the equipment that they're going to use in the future. This is the equipment that is going to be the bread and butter of their jobs. So it's so important for people to actually experience it. Just for a port, every day I have to educate people about this stuff. It's new to people. They don't understand this technology. Most people don't see heavy duty electric trucks driving down the road yet. And it's new stuff to them, and I have to educate them. And so this grant has also educated our port staff, our maritime staff, our senior management at the port, that these vehicles are coming, that they're capable, and it's our job as a port to begin preparing the infrastructure to advance these types of technologies. And that's what we're doing right now. On the equity front, and I'm really glad that that this conversation began with equity tonight, and the report that the Green Lining Institute did for us and that Liz talked about has been really important for us too, and eye-opening for us. We're in the midst of huge planning initiatives at the port that I won't bore you with, but from a new port master plan, more climate action planning, a maritime clean air strategy that we're developing right now. And we are looking at that through the lens of equity. We've been meeting much more often with the Barrio Logan community, with the Environmental Health Coalition here in San Diego, and really trying to bring them into this process, hear their viewpoints, and do this together. And so we've learned a tremendous amount from this project. And as I said, it really is priceless for us.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks.
Dana, I wanted to talk to you next, just on as one of the resident experts here on workforce training. And I know you've had a lot of experience going through looking at workforce efforts across California, but also at the ports in LA and Long Beach as well. And I'd love to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit over the years of what you found as being important for the transition to zero emissions as it relates to the workforce. What are those skills? What are those needs that we need to be able to grow in the San Diego region to meet the port's goals?
Of course, thank you. I'm so happy to talk about that. Again, my name is Dana Fries. I'm the Workforce Development Training Manager at Long Beach City College. I oversee our alternative fuels training programs and have a couple of decades of experience in workforce development. And so when the Port of Long Beach had the opportunity to do a demonstration project for electrified cargo handling equipment, they did ask us to look at, what is the impact going to be on the current workforce? It's a critical thing that you want to look at, especially when you're talking an environment that's highly unionized. You want to understand and know what's going to happen so that there can be planning as you move forward. So I would say that, when we did the workforce assessment, it was really interesting that the transition from diesel to electric is really going to involve a lot of transferable skills. Most of what the mechanics currently know will transition and be useful. And what we found was that there would be supplemental training that could help support them to work most effectively with the equipment that was now electrified. And so mainly what it came down to was understanding things like how to work in an environment and with equipment that is high voltage, which requires a different set of tools, a different set of processes. Understanding battery safety, so important. We also determined through that assessment that working in a corrosive environment was also something that would be critical to understand. There's a lot of salt going in that area. And so for current workforce, we understood that there could be just supplemental training that will help support their transition to working on this new equipment. Beyond that, we also were looking at this from the perspective of long-term education. So, how do our current education programs prepare people for working in these positions in an electrified environment? And what we discovered is that, there's still a lot of automotive technology programs at community colleges, but not every community college has embraced what we call in the college system alternative fuels programs, which are, programs that focus on not regular gasoline fuel. So we looked at, I would say, 23 colleges in LA and Orange County, and only 13 programs had alternative fuels. 13 colleges had alternative fuels programs, and they varied on what they covered. And we even looked at the electrical programs at some of these colleges. Only 6 had electrical programs at all, and of those 6, only 4 included information about zero emissions. So part of our goal, and why I come to events like this and why I'll be working with Port of Long Beach in the coming weeks on an additional workshop series, is to really start bringing information to the community colleges and educators about these changes in the workforce, and so that they can start getting ahead of it and making changes to their content and programming now, so that once this becomes more prominent and more seen more throughout, not just the public sector, but also the private sector, that the colleges are preparing folks appropriately. And we focus on community colleges for a number of reasons. There are a lot of them in California, especially around port cities. But also there was an equity focus. The community colleges attract and draw in a lot of individuals who where there are equity gaps, or as we call them at the colleges, obligation gaps, And so this is the population, and these are the places that we want to focus on to not just prepare a workforce, but to prepare a workforce with a goal of equity in mind.
Thank you, Dana.
Mm-hmm.
Jorg, as somebody who founded a company to build and develop electric vehicles and advanced technologies, I'm sure there's a lot of these training programs you would have loved to have known about in 2006 when you started. Could you tell us a little bit about the experience you had in developing a workforce to build, manufacture, and support these technologies as EDI and then Cummins has continued to develop the technologies you have there? I think you're on mute, Jorg.
We actually started developing electric vehicle technologies around 2008. And I remember I started with one university professor and 2 graduate students, and that was the whole company right there. And you couldn't just go out and find people that had the knowledge or the training or experience, because things were just starting to take off, and it was really challenging. But what we did to develop a really strong, capable team, over 150 people by the time we were done, is you had to bring in people that were willing to learn, that were passionate about the technology, the direction things were going, and that were just absolutely excited to be involved with that. And you surround them with mentors and people that have experience and that are good communicators and good just personnel development folks. And you start teaching, and you teach the teachers, and sooner or later they become the teachers. And before you know it, you have a group of motivated, trained people that can do some amazing things. But no, it's definitely been challenging. And even today, going out to the trade schools or the community college to find people with experience is really difficult. But it's definitely something that has to happen. And if you look at all of the major OEMs around the world announcing electrification products and moving away from engines, it's definitely the wave of the future. So.
Jorg, were there specific trades that you found are kind of in greatest need?
Well, it's it's interesting. There's a lot less mechanical work, a lot more electrical work, and electronic assembly, electronic QA. into the writing software for testing equipment, things like that, diagnostics, all of that. So much heavier on the electrical technician side of things now, software developers, things like that. Quite a bit less on the mechanical side. And that's, I think, the big shift that's coming.
Thank you. Jerry, I'll jump over to you just as another producer of electric vehicles. And I know with your role in operations, I'm sure you're dealing with this a lot of what are the different skill sets that you find you need as your technologies constantly evolve and produce different things.
Yeah, it's been a challenge. TransPower over the last year and a half has doubled in size. We were about 80 people a year ago. We're around 150 now. So a lot of growth, and it's been a busy year, and it has been difficult finding the right skill sets. And Jörg kind of hit it where we're seeing the challenges have been from controls engineer standpoint and electrical engineers, but also the skilled trades. There's in the product that we're producing, there's a lot of fabricated parts, and because we're doing rapid prototypes, we don't have the luxury to go to well-established larger companies, and we're having to do a lot of that fabrication in-house. So those are the skill sets that we've been needing: welders, CNC operators, and programmers. And on the service side is Dana kind of hit that as well. From a field service perspective, you get this product out in the field, and it takes a different skill set to maintain these vehicles. So these vehicles just can't roll into the normal service centers. And the diesel technicians typically are challenged to deal with the EV products. So developing that network, getting those skill sets out there has been a challenge. And what we've had to do is have a lot of our experienced people travel. We've got to send them out of, we're located in Escondido, so we've got to send them out of Escondido to service these remote locations. And as the interest for EV has grown, we've now got customers in Mexico and in Florida, some in the Northeast, and it's becoming more and more challenging to service that network. The growth has mostly been in California, so from that perspective, it's been a little bit easier, but it's starting to roll. It's getting momentum, and other states are kicking in with more incentives and more grants, so they're trying to catch up to California, and we're trying to catch up to be able to support that. So all of those skill sets have been a challenge, and yeah, you've got, I'm an operations guy, been in operations 30 years. Certainly I appreciate the technical challenges, but the ones that really are near and dear to me have been getting those skill sets readily available. So that's where I see, we continue to need that help and support from the community and the community colleges, and developing the skilled trades and engineers, because there's a lot of opportunities. Like I said, we went from 80 to 150 people. So a lot of good jobs, good paying jobs, exciting jobs out there for the right skill sets.
Great, thank you, Jerry. It looks like 150 is the magic number for these company growth. So that's great. Dinah, I wanted to turn it over to you here, because I know SDG&E has probably been going through a whole revolution in what to do with all this demand for new different equipment, and hear about your process to support both the industry and also to find the workforce that you need to work on these projects.
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, I'm Dinah Willier with SDG&E, and I'm a Senior Customer Solutions Advisor. And, with this project, prior to this project, we've been a long-term partner with San Diego Port Tenants Association and the port. And so we had partnered with projects like energy efficiency through our formal local government's partnership program. And with Senate Bill 350, it allowed us to have some what they called priority review projects, really, which was to furtherance the state's transportation electrification and environmental goals. And so we knew we wanted to develop a more robust program. And so, this grant that was provided was really perfect to really serve this market, this growing market, and to a way to get our feet wet and also develop best practices and gain some lessons learned. And with all that information that we gathered, we were able to put a filing together to develop what we have currently, which is our Power Your Drive for Fleet program. And we incorporated all of those best practices and lessons learned. And, what we found is that through our, this is definitely growing and more robust. And we are, our group, the Clean Transportation Group, is trying to meet those requirements to stay up with our programs that we currently have out there. I know internally, we just developed a rotational program with our planning group, such that so that we would have 2 people come in and actually get trained on how to design electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So that's what we're doing internally. Externally, the workforce that we're looking at, for installing all this EVSE equipment, the electric vehicle service equipment, we use trained electricians who need, the electric vehicle infrastructure training program certification. So making sure that we do have those programs outside, that we have enough people that are trained with that certification, and also any work that is completed by our non-utility personnel is performed by our contractors signatory to the IBEW, and they also hold a C10 contractor's license. And so there's definitely a requirement that is specialized for the installation of EV infrastructure charging. I do want to say, though, too, also on the equity side, SDG&E, we have a really robust supplier diversity program. And in the next 5 years, we're going to be spending close to $5 billion in goods and services for the various projects that we have, including clean transportation and sustainability. And so, our aspirational goal is to award 40% of all these goods and services to diverse business enterprises. And in the last year, in our last report, we spent about $60 million specifically for clean transportation and sustainability. And 48% of that was awarded to 29 million, of $29 million was awarded to DBEs. And so we really, on the inclusion part of it, wanting to make sure that those who do perform the work and the goods and services that we need are those that, are part of our DBE program. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's exciting. And 5 billion is a big number. So
it is.
There's a lot of work to do there. Jason, I want to turn to you. You have you've been working with the port here and the project, bringing that freight signal prioritization project to bear. And one of you kind of have a different experience. Instead of developing a technology in-house, but you're working with a lot of people that serve the port through trucking, and want you to talk a little bit about what you're doing, how to get the word out about these advanced technologies to drivers, some of the challenges you've had recruiting folks. Hopefully as those first pioneers are getting through their first run, seeing the benefits of it, you'll continue to see interest.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks, Matt. So my name is Jason Stack. I'm the owner of a small local business here in San Diego. We practice traffic engineering, and we specialize in systems integration. And we delivered the freight signal prioritization part of this program, and delivered it from the concept through the design and the construction, the installation, the integration of the technology. And now we're into the operations and maintenance. So we're focused on the infrastructure side. That's a little bit different. our role on the project's a little bit different from the others. And so we're working with the traffic signals and the local agencies in implementing the technology in the public right of way. And we also have part of the system that accomplishes the freight signal priority is also installed on the vehicles. So what the technology essentially is, in a nutshell, is there's a device at the intersection and a device on the vehicle, and the devices are able to talk to each other. And when the truck's going down the corridor from National City to the 10th Avenue Marine Terminal, that's Harbor Drive, it's able to talk to the traffic signals and let it know that it's approaching the traffic signal so that it can get a green light and not have to stop at the intersection. The technology gets more complex. There's a lot of communication systems involved, a lot of networking, and it's been really informative to hear about all of the challenges and needs for specialized specialized workforce. I'm a small business owner here in San Diego County, and we find it a challenge to find good people who can implement this technology. It's not exactly taught at the collegiate level. It's something that you learn hands-on in practice. Just from the traffic signal side of things, the installations, we worked with the C10 contractors, the electrical contractors, to install the systems on the traffic signals. We worked with mechanics in National City to install the systems on the trucks. And we also work with the truckers to show them how the system works, what it's going to do, the unit on their truck. And we also have applications that they can look at on their phone to understand how the system's working with the traffic signal. It'll tell them the state of the traffic signal on their approach, and they can see whether they're going to get a green light or whether the signal's going to turn red. Ultimately, the system's been very successful. It's reduced the travel time on the corridor for these trucks from 12 minutes to 10 minutes in a trip. That's pretty significant in traffic engineering terms. And it's also reduced their stops along the corridor from 5 stops per run to 3 stops. So it's benefited the truckers from vehicle mileage. It's reduced the greenhouse gases on the corridor, and it's overall it's been a great benefit to the community. And the icing on the cake is that this has become a national demonstration here locally in San Diego. It's gotten recognition from professional organizations nationally that are developing standards for the implementation of this technology. So it's been a great project to work on.
Thanks, Jason. And I'll give Phil, you're going to get the last closing words here before we jump out to the breakout groups, which I'll introduce after Phil, because I know we want to get into more of a dialogue as we go here. But Phil, as the different participants on this webinar are interested in kind of learning how they might better engage in the process now that we've kind of made it through our first trials and tribulations of technologies, what are the ways that different local businesses, individuals can get information and learn about what the port's doing, how to get involved?
Yeah, sure. I'll just give a plug to our maritime clean air strategy that we're developing at the port. And this strategy is to improve the air quality in the adjacent communities next to our port, and to advance this type of technology so that it becomes the future at our port and throughout the rest of the region. If you're able to go to portofsandiego.org / or / I don't know which, MCAS, oh, there it is in the chat. You can review our maritime clean air strategy, take a look at some of the goals and objectives that we're setting for ourselves from a variety of different sources of different vehicles and equipment, and our drive to zero emissions at our port. It's out for comment right now until April 20th, and we'd love to hear any feedback that anybody out there can provide to us. So thank you very much. Oh, and Matt, I did want to say one thing though, as we wrap up. I do have to. I see Sharon Cloward on the list of participants from the San Diego Port Tenants Association, and I can't tell all of you how important she is and has been to the development of this. This was not a Port of San Diego grant. Sharon and her team, which is a very small team, put this together and was awarded, nearly $6 million to bring this technology to us. So I thank her. I thank our tenants who, as you said, Matt, were brave and curious enough to take part in this demonstration. All of the vendors and people that have been a part of this. I mean, it really is a huge grant with lots of people, lots of technologies, and it's been wonderful. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so our next step in this journey, in this process, is to be able to have more of a discussion, more of a dialogue, and we're going to go into breakout groups. I believe, as Phil mentioned before, with the MCAS, the effort they're doing there, there's a lot of room for engagement. I think that's an area that the port really wants to see. Thank you to the Energy Commission for funding several blueprints down in the San Diego area that just came out tonight. Some of the members that were here are part of some projects that will be kicking off probably this summer to develop blueprints around zero emission electrification, zero emission technologies, electric or hydrogen. And there will be ways to engage there through the port. There'll be more outreach coming out this summer for those. So this is the first of what is a long road and journey, and want to make sure everyone who wants to be involved has the opportunity to. There will still be work after this SDPTA grant is going, and more to come.